Embrace the times we try something and it doesn't work, because that's when we really learn. We learn from our failures. We may learn patience, acceptance, and tolerance. We may learn courage, resilience, but we may learn a solution or a technique that this time will work, because that didn't quite work. I have to tweak that a little bit and be willing to challenge it, and know we might be a little afraid, but that's okay. Challenge it, break on through.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today because we have a very special guest. His name is attorney Gary Miles, and Gary has been practicing law for over 4 decades, and he's a trial lawyer by background. He's also as a managing partner, a leader, as well as an entrepreneur. And his passion really is to help folks solve their problems. He's passionate about showing people how to free themselves from the prisons that entrap them, whether that's financial, emotional, or physical. So many attorneys are just stressed and overwhelmed in their practice. But what he does is he provides tangible, practical tools to help his clients overcome these obstacles, freeing them to enjoy success and fulfillment in the ways they've always craved. And I am excited because Gary is our guest today, and we're going to talk about something that is brewing in the air in 2023, right? We've come through a lot, I think, as a society through political turmoils, health turmoils, right? And we're going to talk about how to navigate the unknown as a leader, which is a very important conversation because I think 2023 is a lot of unknown for a lot of us, right? It's a lot of relearning how to do new things because what worked a year ago, even in the tech world, doesn't work now. And so this is a very important skill set to develop. And so join me in welcoming attorney Gary Miles to the platform. Hey, Gary, how are you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it, Suzanne.
Well, we're excited to have you. This is an important topic and not a lot of people are talking about it. So very, very important work that you're doing here. So first of all, tell me about how you got into what you do, right? With helping people really overcome, I love that word that you use, prisons that entrap them. And why is this topic so important to you, first of all?
Well, I've been practicing law for a really long time, and I've just seen in not only in law, but in the whole professional world, things have gotten so much faster, so much more intense, so much more, dynamic. I'm dating myself, but I actually learned to practice law before there were computers. When I wanted to send you something, I would put it in a letter typed on a typewriter and mail it to you. And that slowed everything down. But now it's emails. Clients are emailing and texting. And things have become so much more intense. And I've seen in the legal profession, but I think it's true with other professions as well, that this fast-paced life, the pressure, the competitiveness creates so much stress for so many people. And stress causes a lot of problems, marital problems, addiction problems, physical health problems, emotional health problems. And I'm just passionate about helping professionals be as successful but really as free as they can be. I ran my own firm for a long time, and I often felt trapped by the bank account, by getting new clients. It seemed a bit like a rat race. And a lot of those things we don't have control over, and some things we really do. And I find if we focus on what we have control over and change our mindset, we really can have a new perspective. We talk about how things have changed, and this is 2023 is new, but change is difficult, I found. And it's scary. Doing what is comfortable is quite easy. If I do the same thing I've been doing 100 times, it's easy. But if I would try something new and different, I'm uncomfortable. I'm scared. I feel fear. What if it doesn't work out? What will people think? What if I try this and it bombs? How much will that cost me? And we have to challenge that fear and be willing to embrace being uncomfortable, because that's only when we learn and grow.
Oh yeah, Gary, definitely, definitely. And, I think entrepreneurship, it's a little bit different than other professions, right? Because I don't think that most people realize, unless you're in it, a lot of it is throwing putty on the wall and seeing what sticks, right? I know when I first started my practice, I said, I'm going to have a mobile CPA firm. I am going to drive to people's houses, do their tax return right in front of them, have a mobile printer. And I went to the SBA center and they're like, oh, you're going to end up dead. And the reality is, what we start out with never ends up, I would say for most of us, the way we plan. And so it's really starting to get comfortable with navigating the unknown. And I like what you said, it can be challenging, right? Navigating that unknown. So let's talk about, first of all, What are some steps that entrepreneurs can do when it comes to, coming to peace with the fact that they don't have all the answers and things are in the air?
I think they need to accept the fact that life is a journey. And sometimes we pick the right path and sometimes we pick the wrong path. And I'm sure your listeners are really familiar with the stock market. It's not as ever a straight path. And you may look over the course of 5 years to see a certain rate of return, but it's a very jagged line. There's some good days and some bad days. And a lot of us get really afraid of failing. We're worried maybe from perspective of ego, or what will people think, or what does it mean if I failed? I tried something and I failed. But the reality is those failures are what we learn from. I think I heard Thomas Edison failed like 1,000 times in inventing the light bulb until he figured it out. But from each of those things, he learned, well, that doesn't work. I'll try this. So I think we need to embrace the times we try something and it doesn't work, because that's when we really learn. We learn from our failures. We may learn patience, acceptance, and tolerance. We may learn courage, resilience, but we may learn a solution or a technique that this time will work, because that didn't quite work. I have to tweak that a little bit. So I think we need to embrace the unknown and be willing to challenge it, and know we might be a little afraid, but that's okay. Challenge it, break on through. And I started my own podcast about a year ago called The Free Lawyer, and I was afraid to start it. I'm very wise. I have a lot of experience, but I'm an older guy. Who's going to listen to an older guy on a podcast? It's for younger people. That was the mindset I told myself, until my coach said, but you have 44 years of wisdom and experience that you can share with people, and you speak very well. Don't let that hold you back. And yet my own mindset and my own fear caused me to delay 3 or 4 months in starting it. So it really can affect all of us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think that it's a conversation that needs to be had, because a lot of people don't realize that it's normal. Nobody has it completely figured out. It's about
Right.
being comfortable with that idea of testing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, with the testing and mitigating risks. So you don't throw everything out, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with everything. But amazing with that is just, just starting that conversation and just acknowledging that, hey, we don't all have it figured out, and getting comfortable with the idea of failing and getting back up and starting over again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what other things can entrepreneurs do to start to manage stress, to not be overwhelmed in their businesses or their practices?
Well, I think one thing that's important is to think about what we have power over and what we don't have power over. Obviously, your listeners come from a lot of different business backgrounds, but there's certain things that they may not have control over. They may not have control over the cost of the products they have to use to make whatever they're selling. They're powerless over that. But yet, sometimes those things we're powerless over cause us we resist them. We fight them. They're in our mind and we can't let it go. Or maybe we have a client or a business partner who's very, very difficult, and we keep thinking about how that person is difficult. And we walk in, and when we see that person, we call him Jack, we see Jack, he says hello, but we already have our defenses up because Jack's a difficult person. And all we did was say hello, but yet we aren't receptive. So certain things that we have no control over, we should just let them be. Now, they're not all what we want them to be. I mean, certainly COVID was something we were powerless over. No one liked it. But the question is, how do we adjust? How do we handle it? What do we have power over? We have power over what we think, how we feel, and what actions we take. And that's about it. We have no power over the economy, other people, our customers, our vendors. We have no power over them at all. They are who they are. And we just have to make the best choices for ourselves.
Now, Gary, you know me, I like to peel back the onion. So I'm going to peel
No
back.
peel.
And I think that's neat. We have power over our thoughts. Even the Bible talks about controlling your thoughts, but a lot of people have problems doing that. It's not very easy to do. What are some practical tips with controlling your thoughts? Because like you said, and you see Jack, your hair start to go up on the back of your back. On your neck.
So the first thing is to be aware or mindful. Often we have those feelings and we don't think about them. We don't know that we have them. We never really processed that Jack is a problem in our psyche, that Jack just drives us crazy. And yet we're around him all day and he's very good and he's very successful and he has a role, but he's annoying to me. But we don't process that. We don't think about it. So first step is to think about it. to become aware of it and to accept the fact that we feel that way. And maybe Jack is truly annoying and truly difficult. And that's okay, but he's our partner and he has a role in our business, in our hypothetical. But then, does that thought help me? Does it help me to focus on the fact that Jack is difficult? How does that serve me? Well, it doesn't. It creates stress. It makes me defensive. It makes my working relationship with my partner not very good. It doesn't help me at all. So once I figured out I feel that way and it doesn't help me, well, what would be a better way to think about it? Well, why don't we think about the fact that Jack is talented and successful and has great relationships with our customers, and just let the rest of it be. The analogy I sometimes give is my father, now deceased, loved the ocean. And even when he was in his 80s, he could ride a wave in without a boogie board. Everyone else needed a boogie board. And we would go to Ocean City, Maryland, and the undertow would push me down the beach. The family be there, you'd see the umbrella, you see your mom and dad, you see your kids, but the undertow would push me down the beach and I'd fight it because I wanted to stay in front of my family and I kept resisting it. And he said, that doesn't make any sense. Just drift with the undertow, let it go with the flow, and then exit the ocean, walk 50 yards up the beach and start over. And don't resist it. And resistance to things we can't control holds us back from being as successful as we want to be as entrepreneurs.
I love that. Just learning to go with the flow, right? And, there are like times that you can't control it, right? Now, I'm sure a lot of us have had Jacks in our office, and sometimes those Jacks have cost us a lot of money with their mistakes, but there are times that, we can't help things that are happening around us. And I like that, going with the flow, and especially when there's unknown with that, that can definitely, there's just nothing else that you can do, and just look for the opportunities with the flow, right? That may happen with that. Tell me about, some other tips that we can do and really being able to overcome or manage the entrapments that we talk about, the financial entrapments, the physical entrapments, the emotional entrapments.
I think there are three kind of fundamental principles that I try to follow every day. And of course, try to is the key word because none of us are ever perfect. The first is to live in gratitude. So often we think about what we don't have and what we want. I wish I had this. I want that. And it's okay to have dreams of something we want, but we should begin with focusing on wanting what we have. And what I have my clients do, and at first they think it's hokey until they realize how well it works, is every day for 30 days, and you can do this, Suzanne, write down 3 things you have to be grateful for 30 days. Now, the key is you can't write down the same thing more than once. So you can't write down, I have a wonderful spouse, a wonderful child, and a great dog. Okay, that's just day one. And so after 2 or 3 weeks, you're on a search in your life for something that day that you have to be grateful for. And at the end of the 30 days, you'll find you're actually transformed because you're not feeling so miserable about what you don't have and what your neighbor has and what a nice new car, because you're grateful for where you are and all the blessings that you have.
Ooh, I love that. That's really great because, by then you've got like almost 100 things that you're grateful for at that point. And maybe just Jack, right? That you're not. So very, very good advice
and
on
as
that.
a companion to that, I like to have my clients each night before they go to bed to write down, review that day and what happened that day that was good, that was successful, that we were pleased with. And forget the things that didn't go well. Don't write them down, but write down the things that went well, that made us smile, that my paralegal got that project done that I've been after her to do. And I brought in that new client or that new matter, whatever it is, write it down. And then when we go to bed at night, we're thinking about the things that went well instead of stressing about the problems that are still going to be there tomorrow. The other 2 main principles I really try to practice are acceptance. And this comes down a little bit to our story with Jack. Accepting other people for who they are and where they are and what their journey is. We all come from different places. And early in my life, I spent all my time thinking about what was wrong with Suzanne. I mean, Suzanne's delightful, she's wonderful, but this character trait about her bothers me. And I would focus on all the things I didn't like about other people instead of just accepting them for who they are, accepting circumstances for what they are. As entrepreneurs, we always have challenges. Once in a while, things are on a roll when things are great, but generally we always have challenges. And that's something we just need to accept. It is what it is. It's the circumstances. It's happening this way for a reason. Maybe there's something I can learn from it. But if we practice acceptance instead of resistance to things we can't change, we're much better. And the third is to really be present. As entrepreneurs, we have to be forward thinking. We have to be creative. But in our day-to-day life, we can't be worried about what if we try this and it doesn't work out. We need to just try it and see what happens. We need to get into action today and not be paralyzed worrying about the future. Whenever we think about the future, I don't know about you, but for most people, it's bad. We always imagine, I call it awfulizing. We imagine the worst possible result. My 6-year-old son is going out with a car tonight. What if he dies in an accident? Well, I mean, that could happen, but the odds are so remote that it almost never happens. And I forget what the saying is, so many things we worry about just never, ever happen. So the future is never a good place for us to be mentally. And the past isn't either, because the past is full of resentment for what somebody did to me. My last business partner screwed me. Now I have to start a new business. Or regret. Why did I choose that path? I should have started this earlier. And maybe guilt over something, something we did that we haven't made right. So both the future and the past all have problems. But today is where the miracles happen. Today is where we get into action, we take steps, and we move forward.
I love that. A lot of times with entrepreneurs and leaders, and especially forward-thinking people, right? Especially when you're navigating the unknown. And I like the fact that you talk about, you have to start making steps, right? Making steps forward to do. Now, when there's unknown, you can't really see the forest through the trees, as they say, right? There's that risk and that reward, and balancing out what should I pursue right now when I don't really see the outcome or what's going to happen. How do you know which action to take? How do you know what actions you should be taking in the midst of things you can't control?
Obviously, I've always done what so many people do. You write down the pros and cons, the possible successes and the possible downsides before you make that choice. And I sometimes, if I don't know what the right decision is, I might wait a couple of days, unless it's time urgent for some reason. Because if I don't know today, I struggle with patience. I like to do everything now. But I find if I'm patient and I don't know what to do now or what the right choice is, over time, I hear things, I see things, I sense things. Oh, this is the right thing to do. And so I think patience works as well. And then get into action. Once you're kind of there, it's like, well, there's no guarantee it's going to work out. But do our preparation, do our planning. This is our goal. This is our mission. We're going to dive headfirst into it without any doubts, and we're going to let it rock and roll. We'll see how it turns out. And if it is the failure, then what can we learn from it? If it's a success, we're so glad we got started. But getting into action always works, because you either fail and learn from it or succeed and benefit from it. It's only a win-win.
I love it. I love it. You're right. And I love the idea of just writing it down, the pros, the cons, and giving yourself permission to take time to make those hard decisions that you don't have the answer for right now. Very, very good advice on that. And, it's interesting because a lot of people, they look back and they're like, man, I wish I did this, or I wish I'd done that. Any advice for those that are like always kind of living in that regret of not having done what they could have done now that they see the outcome?
Absolutely. I think regret is really, really something we all can struggle with. And the trouble with regret is it's us beating ourselves up. No one else is doing it to us. No one else is saying, Suzanne, that was a terrible decision you made. It's something we do to ourselves. And so what I think is we have to give ourselves compassion and grace. We're going to make bad decisions. Baseball batters make outs much more than they get hit. So we're going to make bad decisions. But what can we learn from that? And if we're presented with that choice or that opportunity or that issue again, what might we do differently next time that we handle it better? Now, some things we can fix. If I say something completely inappropriate to you and rude and offensive, I can pick up the phone and say, Suzanne, I really apologize. I was way out of line. I'm so sorry. Some things we can fix, but a lot of choices we make, career choices. And this kind of happened to me. I graduated #1 in my law school class, and I clerked in federal court. And the combination of those two meant I could work anywhere I wanted to. But I returned to the same small firm where I had worked in law school. Partly I have a sense of appreciation, maybe partly I have a sense of fear, but maybe there was an inner sense that this is where I should be because I think I'm entrepreneurial at heart. But yet many times in my life, I would look and think, well, I could be a partner in one of the biggest law firms in the world right now instead of in my own firm. And sometimes still today will regret that decision. But I think for me, I made the right decision. I can't change it. It was many years ago. And so I think we have to be compassionate with ourselves and understand that everything we do happens for a reason. There's a lesson in every choice we make.
I love that, being compassionate with ourselves, right? And listening to the lesson that we learn from that. Now that we've got 2023, we've got the media, what they tell us is coming through the pipeline. I'm curious, Gary, what do you see coming through the pipeline for 2023? What opportunities do you see?
Well, I guess it really depends on what field you're in, but I think the world is changing very quickly. And I think we should grab every opportunity that we can. My primary niche is in the legal profession, and there's a lot of innovation going on there. We come from a business model of billing hourly for our time. And so the associates are required to bill a certain number of hours. That's just absurd, unfair, inhuman, so that the law firm can generate the revenue at once. And there are a lot of lawyers who are thinking about new ways of value-based pricing our services. I don't know how accountants price their services. I think it's pretty much an hourly model, but maybe it's more flat-based fee. But if we had a landscaper come and work on our yard, now if he told me we're going to charge you $50 per hour for every man hour here, and we don't know how long that'll be, I'd have said, I'm not interested. Now he gave us a price, and the price might have been higher than if he did it the other way, but I knew what it was and I accepted it. So there's a lot of movement in the legal field to change our pricing structure in service industry so it's not hourly based, but what value can I give to Suzanne for the service I provide? How much is it worth to Suzanne to have some finality and to have a plan? And what's different about that model is then you and I are teammates. You wanted to get it done as quickly as possible because you want to have your problem solved, whether it's accounting or legal or whatever. And I want to get it resolved as quickly as I can because the less hours I spend, the more profit I make. So we become teammates, and it really works very well. And I imagine for a lot of those in service-based industries where they may look at an hourly model, looking at determine the value of what they do, have the client agree to it in advance might be a real constructive thought.
Oh yeah. In the accounting profession, I know a lot of people have gone to the value billing or packages and that type of thing, and more of a retainer model versus the hourly rate, because at the end of the day, the hourly rate, it gives our clients surprise billings, right? They're like, oh my
Exactly.
gosh, I thought like it would take you like 2 hours, and like, even though it would have taken them like 80, but they're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot more than what I was expecting. And so it's really upfront honesty, and it allows you to retain the best and brightest too, because they're not burning out at both ends anymore.
Exactly. That's so true, Suzanne.
So, Gary, one of the questions that we love to ask our guests as we wrap up, and that is, if you could leave our viewers and our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Well, it gets back to what I said before, which is it's to live in gratitude. We could all have more money, we could all have a bigger house, we could all have more revenue, but we're all successful in our own way, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. And love yourself and be grateful with who you are and where you are. Because I mentioned you offline, and it's not really a secret, but I'm sober in recovery. And for me, having an attitude of gratitude means I'm always content. I mean, if I'm grateful, I can't be anything other than happy. And gratitude is something we can choose in our life. We could choose jealousy and selfishness and wanting more, or we could choose to be grateful for what we have and where we are.
I love that. I might start my gratitude journal next month or next week.
Well, you check with me in 30 days. I want to see how you give me that 3 a day for 30 days, Suzanne.
I could see how it completely neuroprogram you like in a different way,
And
thinking
that's
about the
really what
positive.
happens. It doesn't change the circumstances of your life, but it changes how you see your life. Because on day 28, it's like, okay, to finish this for Gary, I got to come up with 3 things today that are new that I'm really grateful for. And they may be something simple like the beauty of the place where you live, but you'll see the world in a different way. You'll see your family in a different way. You'll see your business in a different way.
Oh yeah. And you'll appreciate the small things too,
Absolutely.
definitely, because you're gonna have to put some small things on that list to get through that 100 list of items. Thank you so much, Gary, for joining us today and dropping so many bombs of wisdom. This was really great and really helpful with helping us navigate through 2023, through the unknown, and really for the rest of our lives. Some really great practical tools. Now, Gary, how will our listeners and viewers, what's the best way for them to reach out to you, to find you, to work with you?
Great. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very, very present on LinkedIn under my name, Gary Miles. I'm there every day. And my website is garymiles.net. And you can email me at gary@garymiles.net. And I love to talk to anyone who thinks I could be of some support or assistance to them on their journey.
I love it. Thank you, Gary, so much for everything and dropping these pearls of wisdom.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.